Afirma, es una mano humana, huevo, es ella. Es mi mujer.
For 3 decades, a serial killer and cannibal roamed the streets of the Mexico City suburb of Atizapan. The reason why he was finally caught might just infuriate you. Welcome back to Dark Narratives. We cover dark topics and true crime here, so if that piques your interest, consider subscribing. In today's video, we go over the disappearance of a privileged man's wife and how it led to discovering something that nobody expected from what appeared to be nothing more than a politically active and community-friendly senior citizen. Hours of research of this case revealed not only a completely unexpected criminal psychopath, but also led to the discovery of massive flaws in Mexico City's justice system, over 10 different disappearances that went further unsolved, and a prematurely ended investigation. Without further ado, let us begin. Today, we are in Mexico City, the capital of Mexico, a vibrant and culturally rich destination that offers a blend of history, architecture, and culinary delights. Visitors can indulge in traditional dishes such as mole, chiles en nogada, and tamales, as well as explore the vibrant food markets and trendy restaurants scattered throughout the city. The Zocalo is the heart of Mexico City and one of the largest public squares in the world. Chapultepec Park is also a nice place to visit as one of the largest city parks on Earth. It is home to a number of museums, lakes, and recreational areas. Last, but certainly not least, we have the famed Teotihuacan, an ancient city that is now a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It is home to the Pyramid of the Sun, the Pyramid of the Moon, and the Temple of Quetzalcoatl. It is here, in the district of Atizapan of Mexico City, however, that we encounter several women who have gone missing over the decades. Beginning in the 1990s all the way until the early 2020s, dozens of women went missing in Mexico City's suburb of Atizapan. And every time these women were reported as missing to the police, they were met with common excuses not to investigate the disappearances, such as, "This woman is a fully grown adult. Maybe she suddenly wanted a change in her life and that's why she ran away from you." Or, "With the way you talk to me, I'm surprised she didn't leave earlier. Is this how you talk to your wife?" The reports of all the missing women were simply tossed to the side without any regard for their verifiable safety. In case it isn't already obvious, the police did the absolute bare minimum to investigate the disappearances of these women, and their disappearances could not be linked to any single individual criminal or suspect. And then, of course, there's the topic of police collaboration with the drug cartels. The presence and activity of drug cartels in Atizapan, Mexico City also cannot be ignored as a factor in this case. Drug cartels all across Mexico have contributed to a climate of fear, corruption, and insecurity, making it difficult to trust the police and ensure justice for victims of any crimes that take place in the community at all. The situation is not as simple as police officers accepting bribes from cartel members seeking impunity from the local police force. There have been dozens, if not hundreds of cases of police officers and politicians in Mexico being forced to accept bribes or face unimaginably savage executions by the drug cartels if they choose not to collaborate with the drug cartels. Further, given the way the drug cartels operate with bribing the police, it would be difficult to identify who the good cop was and who the bad cop was. In summary, the general idea is that it would not be illogical to guess that the drug cartels kidnapped the women to work as sex slaves and were never returned home, and that the police were not only being paid to stay quiet about drug cartel activity in Mexico City, but also the women who went missing to service those drug cartels. But then, Reina Gonzalez Amador went missing and everything changed. Reina was employed at a cell phone and electronics repair store. On that day, she was supposed to do some shopping with a family friend in his 70s that the family had nicknamed El Viejo, which literally means the old man. The family friend was frequently invited to dinners with the family and served as a sort of grandfather figure to the children of Reina's household, and they frequently did their shopping together. On May 14th at 5 in the morning, Bruno Portillo, Reina's husband, woke up early and prepared to get an early start on his work tasks that day. He kissed his wife, Reina Gonzalez, on the cheek while she slept in before he went out the door to work. Upon returning home later that evening, however, he saw that his children were at home with no sign of his wife. He tried calling her cell phone, but she did not pick up the phone and it went straight to voicemail. He called the family friend, El Viejo. El Viejo said that he had no knowledge of her whereabouts and that she did not show up for the regular weekly shopping routine. However, Bruno had a commonly used application that could help him, along with the assistance of his wife's family members, locate her phone. This application showed that she was at the residence of the family friend, El Viejo. With this new and unsettling information, Bruno, as well as the brother of his wife, both went to the residence of El Viejo. El Viejo was a relatively well-known community member that was politically active with the lower levels of his district's political council. He was active in lobbying on behalf of the district politicians for Atizapan. When Bruno arrived at the residence of El Viejo, he asked if he had seen Reina. El Viejo denied having met with Bruno's wife earlier that day and denied that she was in his home, and nothing more was said. However, Bruno was a police officer and he had access to CCTV footage in the area and was able to see video captured of his wife walking into the residence of El Viejo. This is considered an abnormal break in police protocol, but if he hadn't performed this break in police protocol, then much worse things could have happened. On the evening of May 15th, Bruno ordered a small team of 3 or 4 police officers to wait outside of the residence of El Viejo. Then, Bruno knocked on the door of the old man and asked to go inside to talk to him. El Viejo let him inside his home, but insisted that Bruno would not find anything. They both sat down in the living room. Bruno dialed his wife's cell phone number and heard it ringing from a makeshift basement in El Viejo's home. El Viejo then started running away while Bruno chased him down, and his other officers on standby assisted him with arresting El Viejo. At this point, Bruno went to find his wife's cell phone and made an absolutely shocking discovery.
Aquí está destazada. Sí, está destazada, jefe. No sé qué pedo, pero aquí hay algo. ¿Necesitamos ver? Sí, jefe, sí es. Sí es, jefe. Afirma, es una mano humana, güey, hija. Es mi mujer. ¿Qué? Vámonos para. Aquí está su bolso. Es mi esposa. Es mi esposa, jefe. Aquí están sus pies. Jefe, pásame su bolso. Es su bolso.
El Viejo was known as Andres Mendoza, nicknamed El Chino in the Atizapan community. Upon interrogations, Mendoza simply said, "The only thing that I want is to tell the truth. I have done it, and there is nothing more to be done." And he officially confessed to all of his crimes, but later began recanting his confessions, denying them in later interrogations and televised interviews. In some televised interviews, he said that not all women are honest and some of them are quite fake. You can't trust all of them. He further continued elaborating that men are supposed to take good care of women and that not all women are fully appreciative of the care that men provide for women. Born in Oaxaca, Mexico on November 29, 1947, Andres Mendoza grew up with some conflicts with female authority figures in his life and a lot of exposure to machismo culture. He eventually moved to the state of Mexico in the 1980s. Andres worked as a butcher for many years and was described by neighbors as a quiet and friendly community member. He was even active with his affiliated political party in Atizapan. Over the years, he accumulated enough wealth to buy several properties in his neighborhood, all of which are next door to his own apartment. He also became a landlord, renting his properties to several prospective tenants. He would even cook food and give it out to people that he knew in his community. However, his disturbing actions and crimes later revealed a dark side to his seemingly normal life. For 30 years, from 1990 all the way until May 15th of 2021, Andres Mendoza was meeting women at bars, luring them back to his residence, ending their lives, and then butchering them, removing the meat from their bones, meticulously weighing their body parts, recording all details in a notebook, and storing their remaining skeletons in his basement while collecting their faces and storing their meat in freezers. When he was arrested, there was a plate that had a tortilla with meat inside of it, suspected of being human flesh, but this detail has neither been officially confirmed nor denied. He recorded all of these incidents on VHS and 8mm cassette tapes that are compatible with Betamax devices, avoiding digital format either due to technological illiteracy or intentionally avoiding digital forensics or a combination of both of these items. At the time he was finally caught, the local fire department had been called in to assist with excavating the skeletal remains of all of the deceased victims found in the basement of his residence. This process was particularly meticulous because of the amount of bones and bone fragments they had discovered. The officially recorded number of bones discovered was 3,787. Subsequent investigations of Mendoza giving food supplies to ordinary people, and in some cases even policemen, revealed the possibility of him feeding the meat of his victims to ordinary people. One dish of choice was carnitas, and if anyone ever asked what kind of meat was in them, he would state that it was meat from wild boars. Once every year, he would travel from his home in Atizapan to his hometown of Oaxaca to visit relatives and catch up with the community of his childhood, teenage, and early adult years, bringing meat that had inexplicable origins. And when the locals of his hometown asked where the meat had come from, he said once again that it was wild boar meat. Unfortunately, whether or not the meat was actually wild boar meat has neither been officially confirmed nor denied, and the only thing that can be done here is to speculate on what the meat actually was. As of the time of this video being uploaded to YouTube, the only crime that Andres Mendoza has been officially found guilty of is taking the life of Reina Gonzalez Amador. For that, he was sentenced to life in prison. In the following year, 2022, he was charged with the murder of another woman that he committed in July of 2019. As you can probably tell, the justice system of the state of Mexico is very slow when it comes to this particular case. However, this is not the only important detail to highlight about delivering justice with the case of Andres Mendoza. Criminal psychologists who interviewed Mendoza came to the conclusion that he was a psychopath because he could just as easily say that he murdered and butchered human beings with the same amount of remorse that he had for slaughtering and butchering animals in his decades of experience as a legitimate butcher. He felt no remorse for his actions and compared his victims to animals. Earlier, it was stated that Andres was also a landlord and that he owned properties that were right next door to his own, and he rented those properties out for extra income. One such residence was rented to his own sister and his niece. There is speculation that if these buildings were excavated, the remains of many more missing people could be found, and the families of the more missing women could be returned to the families looking for answers. After all, in his own notebook, he wrote that he had 29 victims, and the bones that were recovered only belonged to 19 victims. That means 10 victims were missing or not identified by the skeletal remains that were discovered in the one and only residence that was excavated, and many people in the community of Atizapan believe that it would have been wise for police to continue investigating these properties, but no further action was taken. Another problem is that a lot of the items that were recovered at the scene that belonged to the victims were confiscated and disappeared. It is believed that many of these items were later auctioned on the black market. This shows a total disregard for sentimental value that these items may have had for family members of the victims. For example, if you had a daughter who went missing and she was wearing a special shirt that you bought for her, then you would probably want to keep the shirt forever to remember her. Items like these were gone forever, either due to police lethargy or the complete absence of rule of law, or no existence of a police protocol that allowed the family to recover and hold these items. In the aftermath of Andres Mendoza's arrest, the remains of 19 people were officially discovered, 17 female adults, one 7-year-old male child, and one adult male. Through DNA sequencing and DNA profiling, 11 families were informed of their missing loved ones in total. Upon Andres Mendoza's arrest, many families came forward stating that their missing daughters, wives, sisters, or aunts would frequently visit bars in and around the area where Andres would find his victims. Many of the firefighters and police officers who worked to uncover the remains of the women found in the residence of Mendoza had PTSD, better known as post-traumatic stress disorder, caused by everything that they had found at the crime scene. Large-scale protests were launched in Mexico City in reaction to the case of Andres Mendoza by feminist groups that advocated for women's rights, justice for women, and equal treatment of women alongside men in society, as well as calling for the complete elimination of feminicide. These protests also called to take seriously any inquiries of missing women from that day forward. The impact that this case had on Mexico as a nation was so profound that a documentary series was created known as Cannibal Indignación Total on Mexican television. The anticipation of this documentary series was so strong on the nation that even the people who normally did not watch television were watching television just to understand everything that took place in the Mendoza case, the miscarriages of justice that took place in the process of arresting and prosecuting Mendoza, the abrupt stop in the investigation, and everything else surrounding the case. And finally, this is perhaps the greatest disservice to Reina Gonzalez Amador and her husband Bruno. The prosecution side of the trial accepted a lie from Mendoza when he took the stand and stated that Reina entered a romantic relationship with Mendoza. This was officially put on the court transcript. Bruno Portillo has been seen on camera in public interviews openly rejecting this claim, as it has already been stated by the Associated Press that Mendoza was regarded as El Viejo, the family friend, and nothing more. In the end, no one has more closure than the surviving children of Reina Gonzalez Amador, as well as her husband, Bruno Portillo. The families of the victims whose remains have been recovered and identified only have closure in the essence that their loved one has been discovered and identified, but have yet to see justice delivered, as government officials have said that trials for the remaining 19 recovered victims will likely stretch beyond whatever remaining lifespan the 72-year-old Andres Mendoza has left. Others are upset that the police officer who discovered his wife's mutilated corpse, once again Bruno Portillo, is the only individual with the privilege of having justice served and closure for his wife. Because, after all, if he was not a police commander, he neither would have been able to find his wife's mutilated body, and he would not have been able to stop Andres Mendoza. This concludes the case of the Cannibal of Atizapan, Andres Mendoza. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving a like and subscribing to this channel. As always, remember that every day is a new opportunity to see the light, and until next time, I bid you all farewell.